who was talking about civil unrest from the Eugene Police Department's viewpoint. Today, we're going to listen to a program about civil unrest from another viewpoint. And this is from the viewpoint of Ibrahim, who's going to talk about his vantage point through the eyes of NAACP, which I'm really excited to hear about. Ibrahim, I think, might give us a little bit of his own background in there. I've asked him to talk until about 10 minutes until 1 and give us 5 minutes for questions, or you can stop earlier, and this group usually has a lot of questions, Ibrahim. And then I'll take it back over at about 5 till 1 and we'll wrap up the meeting and get ready for next week, get everybody back to work on time. So with that, I will mute myself and turn it over to Ibrahim, who will unmute himself. There you
go. Hello, my name is Ibrahim Coulibaly. I was born in West Africa, Burkina Faso. It is a small country, French-spoken country, and I had the opportunity to come to the United States for the first time in 2008. I was living in Paris with my family, and we started working with the Bronx Museum of Art. And part of what I was doing was to find indigenous women in Africa who are artisans who make handicraft to bring to New York for them to show their work, but also get to meet other artisans in New York to talk about techniques and material. So that was the first time I came to the United States, and was just before the presidential election. And I spent few months in New York, back and forth between New York and Paris. And in 2010, 2011, I have decided to learn English. I was I only knew a few words I could read, but conversation on phone or at the store were really challenging for me. So I went to New York University to take a term of ESL, English as Second Language. And while I was there, I met someone who is from Eugene. And he told me, well, instead of going to New York University, why don't you go to Eugene, Oregon? I have to say, I never hear of Oregon before that day, that moment. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know where it was. And he convinced me that it was cheaper and the access to the campus was at least a short commute. So 2-3 days after that, I was on a plane heading to Eugene, and at that time I was calling it Eugene in French. How you say Eugene, and so the lady next to me on the plane had to correct me and say, well, I'll say Eugene is not Eugene. And so here I was in Eugene. So I started going to Lane Community College to learn English. I think instead of taking ESL classes, I started writing 60, something like that. And it was interesting. I ended up liking this place. And I also, unfortunately, had my first encounter with racial slurs. I didn't know what it meant. I was waiting to cross the street, and there came a car. People get out that car, they start calling me the N-word. That was very threatening. I couldn't understand fully what they were talking about, but I could tell by their body language that they were not happy to see me here. So that led me to do some research about where um, I could learn more about racism because I never took that step. I never thought it was that important. So I Googled it. I finally found the local NAACP. I joined NAACP and here I am. I first I was a volunteer trying to teach kids French, tutor them in French. I put together a group of retirees to have Thursday conversation with international students. Uh, the idea behind was we are not in the academic setting, we're not in class. We have conversation to talk about ourselves. They will talk about themselves, but they were allowed to correct our English. They would tell you, well, you know, this is how you say it, and it was a good way to meet a lot of people, and it did help me to improve my English. And I became the chair of the legal redress committee. And that committee is the committee that investigates the complaint we received at NAACP about civil rights violation. And after that, I became vice president, and now I'm the current president. Elections are up in November. I haven't made my mind yet if I'm going to run again. But it definitely has been an honor for me to be able to serve in the NAACP at this capacity. And at our last national convention, I was the only um, foreign-born branch president, which was quite an honor for me. And I'm still encouraging all immigrants to be involved. The civil unrest in the United States, maybe my due to my background is kind of a little different. What I would say is kind of a little different for someone who was born here as a black male in America and who's also a single parent like myself. The first explanation is to me, during that quarantine, COVID-19, we were all asked to remain at home, and people were watching a lot of TV. And when we saw what happened to George Floyd, it kind of triggered um, a lot of trauma in the Black community because a lot of Black people, like myself, even though I'm here for um, almost a decade, have had a kind of with police that wasn't very pleasant. You either felt humiliated, sometimes bullied, and oftentimes um, there was a feeling of not having a say on how the all encounter went. You, I, my example is one day I was coming down that street that goes by Churchill High School. I'm coming from the south. So I passed Churchill High School and I turned on 18. And I was pulled over by a police officer because he told me that I was going 35 and in that area, I think it was 25 or something like this. But right away, he asked me to sit on the curb, and he, wanted to search me. He wanted to see my hands, and it was around 11 a.m. And I couldn't understand why he was going to that extent to what appeared to me like humiliating because it's a traffic violation. You either give me a ticket or you give me a warning. But why have me sit on the curb and wanted to search my car, ask if he could search my car, if I was drinking. So that kind of stick with me for a while. I, I I didn't know if it happened to anyone else because at that time I didn't have those type of conversation. But I found out that it's kind of pity. The second time when I was pulled over by the police, they said, "Well, I crossed the center lane," and they literally came to my car with gun drawn, and they wanted to see my hand at the window and everything else. I said that's one. A lot of people in the Black community are being frustrated, and we also almost every Black person knows someone who have either been arrested, taken to jail, and then the charges get dropped, and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't get justice. But also, sometimes the arrest itself is very violent. They will, take you down and put their knees on your back, and so that frustration in the horrible scene of George Floyd's death, uh, um, with the context, the background of confinement, people being losing their jobs, stress, don't know what's going to happen, Black people dying, and I think to me that those were one of the trigger points. It was like something has to change, something has to be done. As a legal readers chair at the local NAACP here, we were receiving around 3 to 5 complaints a week about Black people calling the police and end up being arrested themselves. It happens a lot in Springfield. Sometimes at the store because someone feel like they were being followed. They call the police and the police end up arresting them. It happened in the bus where a Black person was being called the N-word. He approached the bus driver and said, "Well, I don't feel safe. Is there anything you can do?" And the bus driver called the police, and the Black person ended up being arrested and for talking to the bus driver. So we had those that, and that's at Eugene level. I will share my experience based on what I know from Eugene here, and we receive a lot of complaint from the school district. Kids being called racial slurs, and parents complaining to the school district, but nothing happened. The teachers sometimes are part of the problem, and we've seen a lot of um, clear bias from some teachers, even during the meeting that we had with the teacher and the superintendent. You could, I mean, you wouldn't want your kid to be in the same class, but this type of behavior. So I think it's frustrations, and a lot of justice denial. People haven't had access to justice. People didn't feel like their voices were being heard, and people not knowing where to go, who to talk to anymore. They have filed complaints. They have approached, the police department, the justice system, but they end up being told that, well, while it's not morally right, there was no law broken. So that's my explanation of what's going on. And during the conversation, people will say enough, and sometimes they're embarrassed even to talk about their own experience because it's something that you bury deep inside. You don't want to. It's a big moment of vulnerability to talk about those moments that you felt low about yourself. You had to, endure that, but just walk away. So NAACP is, of course, we've been around for 110 years. We have been having regular discussion with the police department. How can we help? Because we think that more we get to know each other, more the police officers get to know the community, they will find resources within themselves, or at least they will become aware of their own biases and know how to deal with the minorities. And it's not necessarily that the minorities do not have issues internally. And like I told Chief Skinner multiple times, I know some people in my community that I think they are biased. And I don't agree with what they do. I don't agree with what they say. But if we have enough people to start the conversation, enough good apples to start the conversation, and say that, well, this is what you think you are getting wrong. We think you are getting this wrong. You tell me how you perceive us. You tell me what are your concerns, what are your fears, because that's what brings most of the problem. When the police officer walk to you after a traffic stop with a gun drawn, they are probably concerned about something. They have some fears. What those fears are. So we have to be able to put everything on the table to have a meaningful conversation and get to know each other and build bridges. And I have been doing that with NAACP. Recently, I have decided to start a nonprofit about human rights, not civil rights. Because I like human rights because it has an education component to it. It is, first, we are all human. We all have rights. We all have concerns. And the human right comes to play before the civil rights are violated. Before we even talk about civil rights movement, which is a reaction to civil rights violation, why don't we talk about human rights? I have a right, like all of you, to have a shelter, a right to pursue happiness, a right to education. So if we bring the conversation up front to have, those rights being known by people, see how we can help each other to for us to fully enjoy those rights, maybe we will not get a lot of civil rights violation. And the organization is called Human Stories. The reason is we always talk about human rights, civil rights. We don't put stories behind it. We don't put faces behind it. My goal is to have enough people and can talk about themselves. I'm an immigrant. A lot of people don't know me, and some people think they know me. But I want to have an organization where people can share their experience as a young white male growing up in Success, Oregon. What it was, what it meant to me, and what I came across of diversity, and what was my experience as a Black person from Africa, why how I got here. And we all have the same hopes for our kids and grandkids. It is for them to grow up in a country where they can go where they want, they can make the friends they want, they can play with each other, and they can build a future for themselves. So if we can have those conversations at individual level, at human level, I think it's going to build bridges. We need to bridge people instead of theories and concepts and ideologies. We need to bridge people. People need to talk to people, and we can do that. It doesn't take a lot. It's for now. It's only me, but I think most people, a lot of people will join, and we can have a regular conversation. We can come up with educational material, and we can make the community a little better. So this is roughly what I have been doing now, and I've, I have the opportunity to meet with different people. I like stories. I my first job was an activity assistant at the nursing home, and they all liked me there. All the residents, I was their favorite, just because I like stories and I like to listen to people. You know, we feel comfortable when we have the sense that the other person know who we are. And how the person will know who we are is if the person give us the opportunity to talk about ourselves. I, after the hospital, I work at Riverbend Hospital. I was doing telemetry. So people come in at night, they have surgery in the next morning. So we have to get them ready for the surgery. Sometimes they don't have family members. Sometimes they travel from rural Oregon and they're here. And I used to work night shift. And everybody's concerned before a surgery and they don't sleep. Believe me, usually at night they're awake. And I'll try to find a way to make them talk to me about their family. They'll talk about their daughter, granddaughter, they'll talk about everything. And at the end of my shift, I will stop by and say, hey, good luck, I'll be back tonight, or maybe not, but it was nice to meet you. I have received hundreds of postcards from former patients who express to my managers how that time, that hour, or those 30 minutes at night helped them have a peace of mind before the surgery. I wasn't doing it because of maybe one reason is, self-interest. I want to know people. I like to listen to them. I like learning from people's experiences, but also I hope for myself that if one day I were to be in a situation like that, someone would have the time to stop and talk to me as I was talking to those people. And the greatest compliment I ever got was, may you get a person like you the day you are in a situation like I am right now. That was great for me. And I think it's also what is needed in civil rights. It's civil right and human right. We need to know that when people are asking, when people are uh, telling us that their rights are being violated, we need to take that time to listen, regardless of the way they are expressing themselves. We need to listen, and we need to start a conversation. We need to help. We need to help the community to identify how to better help those people who somehow right now are suffering because of how the system is not individuals most of the time. The system was built into discrimination, into exclusion, into, you know, it was built onto those kind of things. How can we dismantle that? And I think Rotary clubs are a great way of doing it. And in closing, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what your wheels, I don't know how you call it, you know, the Rotary Club, the wheel. When I was growing up in Africa, I used to go we get up early morning to go get water for our mouth. Burkina Faso is a very dry country. So we would go about 3 to 4 miles with those 20 gallon drums, get water, bring it home before you go to school. And at school, of course, we had water that wasn't clean water. And one year we went on vacation. When we came back, there was a well with those manual pump to get water, and there was a Rotary Club sign next to it, and we didn't know what that meant. And they came back later and they built bathrooms, on the campus. And my brother joined one of the Rotary Club, and I got to learn a little more about what you do. It's very important. It's very important to give your time, to give some resources when you can, and because it helped. It did help me to get clean water. It helped some people to have a better day. Just put a smile on someone's face, and there is no price point to that. When you start helping people, you can't stop because you cannot buy it. It's just the satisfaction, the feeling that we get, and seeing that we were able to make a difference in someone's life. It is priceless. And I thank all of you guys for doing this. And I thank you for sharing your time with me.
Ibrahim, it was really nice to hear you speak. Tell us a little bit about your background, and I like the way you circled back into it at the end. And I especially like the way you weaved Rotary into your story. I think you are a Rotarian at heart, and I will be following up with you to see if you might be interested in joining a Rotary Club, because I think, don't you guys think he would make a great Rotarian? The man is already, look at this, the man is already a Rotarian. He just needs to sign up and join. But does anyone have any questions? If so, raise your hand and then I'll ask you to unmute yourself. Anita.
I don't have a question, but I just want to commend Ibrahim. I'm a professor at the U of O. And when you said how you sought to start learning English, you were just so articulate, clear, well-spoken. I just want to commend you on that. I mean, that's just great to hear. Thank you so much for sharing all of your stories.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy.
Ibrahim, I'm mostly retired, but a longtime administrator for J. I'm curious, you talked a little bit about some experiences with parents or students and parents who had complaints with teachers and all. And I recall many of those discussions myself. But I'm wondering what process you saw happening when, I'm assuming they went through the form. I don't know if you were talking about at the school level or through the superintendent's formal complaint process, but be interested to know what you saw in the process and what you think would help to improve it.
Thank you. First, we try to address it at the school level because when we receive a complaint, My approach is we all make mistakes. And I assume that people have good intent until they convince me that they have ill intent. And the first thing we do, we identify the kid when we are approached by the parents. We identify the teacher, and we try to establish a contact with the teacher. And because we don't want anyone to lose their job, and we don't want anyone to lose their job while they are genuinely trying to do the good thing, but they probably fail to do so. So we try that first, and if it's not working, we approach the school. So, well, this is the issue we have. Can we always offer a training. We always offer to train people first. But you can have the best training. The government, all the government agencies have all sort of training, school district, all kind of training. It's all come down to the human who is supposed to deliver, those services. So what I think is probably the issue is, are those teachers who sometimes, after the discussion, is like, wow, you don't know if it's because of being put under stress by, administration and WCP, talking about pretty much you being not a good person. You get pushed back, and you don't know if that's the reason why they are not at least responding well. They are not receiving well the not the training but the discussion that we want to have with them. So I don't know if it's a workload. I don't know if it is the school program, what they have to teach. I don't know if maybe putting adding some no, I wouldn't say implicit bias. I don't like terminologies. I don't like big notion, because when you say implicit bias, yes, we all have seen 200 different implicit bias training. But how you put the human, how you put the heart back to teaching, how you get the teachers to consider that those kids are there because they value something that the teacher has. They can value that, and we want them for you to pass that on. When I grew up, teachers are like, you have your parents, and you have the teacher, and whatever. Values-wise, teachers were like, praised all the time. You want to know, you want to learn. Sometimes you have to work for it. We walk miles and miles to go to school, and we were happy to be there. But it seems like it's different. It is teachers are human. They come from a family. They have a background, and sometimes they cannot. Some of them, at least, a very small portion, the minority. Tiny, maybe 0.0 something percent. They cannot leave that part of themselves out of the class. They will the way they interact with people of color. We have kids who do not want to go to class anymore because the teacher keeps talking about their hair, and we have kids who do not want to go back to school because the teachers keep talking about the drug issue in the Black community, or talking about those what we're seeing, the unrest, people being arrested as being a Black problem. So we always offer to have a conversation, and we don't want to be injected in the school system to be able to be part of brainstorming and getting the solution. We let them know what we do. We can help with this. And up to the school system to find ways where they can provide better resources to those teachers or better resources to students, to those kids and parents to be able to bring the issue to their attention and get it addressed.
Thank you. I bet there might be another question. I see Ron's got one. I'm going to go ahead and close